Michelle, thank you for taking the trip to Austin. Brett and I have been enjoying your yogurt for the past month or so and are just so excited to talk to you about what you've built because the company is incredible and just such a pleasure to have you on the show.
You're welcome. I'm happy to be here and um, be able to take the opportunity to share my story and other culture story with y'all.
Yeah, we were saying before we hit record, we live half a mile from the farm store local pastures in Austin, which was a collection of a few farms getting together and just saying we really want to create a brick and mortar location where people have access to great farm quality food. That was the first time that I think we both came across mother culture yogurt.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and maple pecan, the dark chocolate, the kefir, the signature yogurt, the Greek yogurt, it's all so good. And then we started to learn a little bit more about your story, how it's all grass fed, it's whole fat. And we're just very excited to learn more about you and have you share your story because the dairy industry is, it's fascinating how much it's changed over the last few decades. And I know you have an incredible perspective at how you got started.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and we should give a bit of a warning on the maple pecan yogurt because it's almost like some sort of drug. I don't know what you guys put in there, but it's so good.
Yeah, we call that one the fella favorite or definitely a bestseller, but good one for a best-selling category. And it's a great replacement for ice cream.
It
You get
is.
that healthy fats and probiotics while you're indulging in a delicious treat. So,
Absolutely. And it's amazing just to see around Austin how much the mother culture name and brand has grown. And I know for you, your perspective on health and nutrition is something that's very personal to you. I know that your daughter had some pretty serious allergies and health issues that you really were able to heal holistically through diet and lifestyle. You took this really terrible event and turned it into a positive, and it ended up being kind of like the cornerstone of you launching your brand. So we'd love to learn a little bit more about that and how long ago that was and some of the things that you did to help your daughter.
sure, of course. My daughter is now 16, but our journey started when she was around 6 months old. She had her first allergic reaction. She was covered from head to toe in like a raised red rash. And as a mom, when you see your kid that sick, you feel helpless. You
Hmm.
don't know what to do. So, of course, I did what most people would do and I rushed her to the doctor. And that was the beginning of about a dozen different reactions that she was having. And I had no explanation from local pediatricians. We went through a few of them, and I would fire one after another. And my question or what I was searching for is the root cause.
Hmm.
Why? Why is she having these reactions? Why are we having to go through this over and over and over again? I could not seem to pinpoint. And I said to the last pediatrician that I fired, do you think that there could be a correlation between her diet and her skin? Well, no, I don't think so. I've never heard of that, but I don't know. So at least she said, I don't know, you know? And so that was the kind of the springboard of my research was being a desperate mom trying to figure out how to fix her kid. And so, I'm a Christian woman. And so after a lot of prayer, I ended up on the internet and I remember searching in Google, food allergies and diet.
Hmm.
And the first thing that popped up at the top was the Weston A. Price Foundation's website. And they had an article about food allergies, diet, eczema, and this diet called GAPS. GAPS is an acronym for gut and psychology syndrome. And I just started diving in to all of that. But it was so incredibly validating to have a place that was actually talking about this, because this was 14 years ago and there really wasn't a lot of information about eczema, food allergies, digestive ailments in children. She was diagnosed with toddler's diarrhea, and that was such a vague diagnosis. Like, again, no reasons for why she had this diagnosis. So, um, I got stuck on the traditional foods diet for quite some time. I was fascinated with milk, with raw milk, everything I could make out of it. I was like a mad woman in the kitchen, making butter, making cheese, making yogurt, just working with rennets and cultures. And I just really fell in love with the art and the practice of fixing, these homemade dishes with queso fresco on top or cultured salted butter on your sourdough. And it just connected me to nature and to the land and to my food source. And it just felt like a spiritual awakening of a kind, you know? And as we got deeper and deeper into that, it wasn't enough. My daughter just kept on having allergic reactions. She kept on, having this debilitating eczema where she would just be in the corner scratching herself to pieces. Like, this became a part of who she was. It wasn't just an annoyance, and as a mother, I continue to be tormented by this. And so I started to really dive into the GAPS diet. And the GAPS diet is very much a meat-based diet where you're making these homemade stocks and broths from bones with a joint and salt and herbs and whatnot. And then that really becomes a healing tonic that you use throughout the course of the diet. And you're supposed to consume it with every meal. And so we started on this diet, meat and vegetables and fruits and this meat stock that I was making. 2 weeks later, she's eczema free. And I mean, this is a miracle because, like I said, this was taking over her body. She was not able to function. And so I was sold like 2 weeks into this. I'm like, food is medicine. Food is medicine. And so we went ahead and continued this diet, maybe adding in a few things every week until she could eat eggs. She was allergic to over 30 foods.
Wow.
Between the skin prick test and the blood test, 30 foods, simple things like bananas and garlic. We couldn't eat out. It was intense. So, one of the principles of that diet are fermented foods as well. And so we started with the 24-hour kefir, fermented kefir. She could have grass-fed raw cheese from the farm, but if I gave her like American cheese slices, she would break out in hives. On paper, she was allergic to eggs, but if I got eggs from the farm that were soy-free, she could eat the eggs. And so these little like aha moments were happening that just kind of kept pointing me back to the farm, back to the farm, back to the farm. And it was the only way that my daughter was able to gain vitality and eventually heal. And now, fast forward to present day, she still has the nut allergy, but that's the only one that's left.
Wow.
So we went from 30, down to a couple of the peanuts and the tree nuts and things like that.
Do you know what the origin is of that GAPS diet? Is it something that the Weston A. Price Foundation put together, or was that something that was established before them?
It isn't something they put together. It's a book by Dr. Natasha McBride Campbell, and she built the diet based on Breaking the Vicious Cycle by Elaine Gottschall. And she used it in her family as well. She's a brilliant microbiologist. Have a wonderful website with lots of information for folks that are seeking to heal and seal that gut lining. Because what we learned was that my oldest had leaky gut syndrome. And so she was allergic to so many foods because her guts were permeable, that food was leaking out and getting into the bloodstream and then blowing up every lab on earth. And so that was a condition that wasn't even remotely accepted back then. Now there's a little bit more information about leaky gut and other digestive ailments, but that's what she was suffering from. And once we healed the gut, her allergies went away. And most people don't think that food allergies are something that can be healed, and they definitely can be. And that was our experience.
Before we get into the episode, let's talk about Fawn Bone Broth's carnivore blend.
100%. Yeah. We've been huge fans of bone broth the last few months. It's really fueled our carnivore journey. Bone broth is incredibly nourishing, especially on a carnivore, animal-based, or just any type of diet, to be honest with you. And what's great about Fawn is that they're a very simple, pure product. So their product is just boiled bones, water, salt, and most of their products have spices like turmeric, cayenne, cracked pepper, but they actually just came out with their carnivore broth, which is very simple: chicken bone broth, water, and salt too. So they're eliminating all their spices and just giving you something very pure that won't disrupt the gut.
Yeah, I think one of the things we talk about with the elimination diet is the fact that there's so many things that do actually affect how your body reacts to the food you put in your body. And the fact that they're just doing a pure bone broth with bones and just the minimal ingredients, I think is huge. And the carnivore audience will love this one. Fawn does regenerative bone, so it's really high quality stuff. Go check it out. Use our promo code in the link below.
Yep. Code MAFIA will get you 15% off your first order. Clearly, that's the thought process that your doctors had, because here you are, a concerned mom. You'll do anything for your daughter to be able to be healthy. You're going from doctor to doctor. And like you said, you had this intuitive sense of there's something root cause that we need to address. Yet, unfortunately, due to Western medicine and the limitations, no one's able to get you to that root cause. So it really took for you to basically be like the CEO of your daughter's health and just do that digging, do the digging. That's what Harry and I always talk about, being the CEO of your own health. You stumble upon Weston A. Price, you start experimenting with this GAPS diet, and then years of just searching. All it takes is 2 weeks of trying this diet, and your daughter's eczema finally goes away. So that for you is like, wow, food really is medicine. This stuff really works.
And the diarrhea, it was gone.
Yeah. So 30 allergies down to 1 now.
Well, if you count, peanuts, tree nuts are technically 2. So yeah, 30 to 2.
And now for you and your family, cooking your meals, really good quality dairy, it sounds like that's really like the centerpiece of how you all eat.
Definitely. We are big traditional foodies, still very much follow, more Weston A. Price principles. And I'm huge on soup too. I mean, we have to have a soup on the menu a couple times a week. And that just keeps, the kids used to eating that sort of food, first of all. And then second of all, like we all need those vitamins and minerals from the broth and from the stock to keep maintaining that digestive health. And part of that too is the ferments that we eat as well. I'm a huge proponent of kefir when folks are going through digestive ailments of any kind. One of the things that I learned on our journey is the lack of lactose really helps folks to be able to digest it. So a lot of times folks will have trouble digesting dairy, but really if they just find the right kind of dairy that's been prepared the right way, they're likely to be able to overcome that. And that is a very frequent customer story that we get from feedback at the farmer's market.
You've touched on this a little bit, but what is it specifically about those core groups of foods, that the broths, the joints that are collagenous? What is it about them that are actually good for the gut? Because I think there's a lot of information out there around certain types of foods that are good for the gut, but it seems like these certain foods, broths, and the other foods that you mentioned, they really do promote good gut health.
Yeah, totally. I think that I read from Dr. Natasha McBride Campbell's studies as a microbiologist. She has cited that our gut is actually, or our cells are 90% our microbiome. So that means that only about 10% of our being in our cells is human. 90% is our microbiome. So the question really becomes, how do we feed our microbiome? Through food. Food is medicine. So these foods that were before mentioned are medicinal. They have medicinal properties. And as a society, we've forgotten how to eat. We have so many distractions in the inner aisles of the grocery store, and those foods, the bones and the marrows and the meat and on the joint and everything that make just is a digestive tonic. It soothes, it cools inflammation. Kefir can be an amazing life-giving product. Any whole milk dairy that's processed correctly really can, depending on where you are in your digestive journey. But not only in the kefir, not only do you get the protein, but you get the fat, from the whole milk Jersey cows. That's what we're committed to at Mother Culture. And you're getting all the wonderful probiotics. Kefir has more probiotic strains than yogurt does.
How do you think about approaching a customer that's coming to you and saying, okay, Michelle, I've started to do more research on dairy. I've heard that really good quality dairy is incredibly nutrient dense, but I'm lactose intolerant. And you mentioned that there are certain types of dairy that are very low in lactose or lactose free. Is it kefir that they should be starting with? Or how do you kind of think about recommending some of those early stages of dairy to someone that's lactose intolerant?
Totally. So I'm not a doctor,
Yes.
but I do know that I have customers who have cured lactose intolerance with kefir. And I recommend a shot glass a day is what I say, keeps the doctor away. So just an ounce really of kefir a day will give you more probiotic power than any capsule that you can buy on the market. And it's also going to travel all the way through the body and not get stuck somewhere in between because it's food. So I would start with kefir and maybe some plain Greek yogurt, because the Greek yogurt has been strained. And when we strain it, we pull out the lactose, which is the hardest part to digest when you're lactose intolerant, is the lactose. And then another thing that could be useful is maybe some raw milk, because raw milk has enzymes, and enzymes are lost during pasteurization, but they're fully intact in the raw milk product. And a lot of folks who are lactose intolerant find that they can actually drink raw milk from the farm.
You mentioned something earlier too about cheese, saying that your daughter couldn't necessarily eat the cheese that was from the grocery store, but she could eat cheese that was maybe unpasteurized cheese or just farm fresh cheese. So I'm curious, what is your perception of the difference between the two? Is it the preservatives, or is there something else in there that's causing the gut distress?
Totally. I think on that particular issue, there are two issues going on. One is the type of protein. If you've heard before of A1, A2 protein, A2 protein is more easily digestible. Our ancestors were consuming this type of dairy. They're from heirloom breeds, such as Jersey, Guernsey. The A1 protein is more of a hybridized, more Holstein, protein. So I think that it probably had to do with the fact that we were buying grass-fed raw from small farms, because we did seek out a couple of local farmers and buy those from farmers that were keeping Jersey cow herds. And then the other thing that I think helped her was the fact that it was raw. A lot of times our cheeses are made from pasteurized milk, and the typical pasteurization process will take that milk past 200 degrees in a matter of seconds. And that really warps the milk product. It makes it so that our body doesn't really recognize the proteins any longer. But when it's raw, it's got the enzymes, it's got the cultures from the cheese, and then it's got the proper proteins that haven't been warped. And after my studies, I was able to figure that out. But at the time, it was just a miracle that she could consume dairy, because on paper, she was allergic to dairy.
Wow.
Do you think there's a world where we see raw milk make a resurgence in the US because it's so highly regulated, but it seems like there are so many properties of raw milk that actually promote really serious health, especially when it comes to gut health?
That is the dream. That really is the dream. I know in California you can buy it on the shelf, and I hope that Texas someday gets there. We have to have enough responsible farmers to supply that demand. That I always tell folks when they do farm visits to check the hygiene, and there are some farmers in our area that really make an effort to do that right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we should be consuming products from those farms. And just be careful not to consume raw milk from other farms. And, and that's where the bad rap comes in for raw milk, are the folks that are just doing it for money, the folks that don't have a heart in this. And those are the ones we need to be careful of, to weed out and to not vote with our dollars for that milk.
And I know commercially in Texas, I don't think you're allowed to commercially sell raw milk, but I think there's a specific way that you do this low temp pasteurization that still is beneficial and can preserve a lot of the enzymes. So maybe we could talk through that, where someone's sitting in a state where they don't really know how to buy raw milk, but maybe they could at least go to their Whole Foods and get some good quality grass-fed dairy that's low temp pasteurized,
Sure.
which is a good option, like Plan B almost.
Sure. Yes. Most folks can find raw milk if they purchase it on the farm. Most states allow that. And a purchase at the farm can also mean that you buy it online, and then you pick it up at the farmer's market or the local co-op. And so that's, of course, the best avenue to pursue. And then the second one would definitely be to seek out low temperature or vat pasteurized milk that can be sold anywhere. In most of the more natural grocery stores, you'll find that sort of milk. And there are a couple of brands. I don't know if I'm allowed to mention.
Yeah, you are.
Okay. Kelowna Organics does a great job. They make both heavy whipping cream and whole milk. I've seen Milk King here locally in
Yes.
Texas is a great brand. And yeah, that's all I can think of right now.
And you were saying that for someone that's listening that might struggle with lactose intolerance, that Greek yogurt could be a great product to start with. And we've had a lot of your signature yogurt, in the way that we understand. Yeah, we've had a lot of it. But the way that we understand it is you essentially just take a cheesecloth and strain it, right?
Mhm.
And that's how you get the Greek yogurt product. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's a traditional process of straining through cheesecloth. There's no mechanical separation or any other kind of, advanced commercial dairy practice involved. Very old school.
I'm interested to get your experience a little bit more when you first got into raw milk, because Brett introduced me to raw milk. And when I first experienced it, one, the flavor is better, but it also just, you can taste the nourishment. There's actual nutrients in there, the proteins like you're talking about. Like, there is a difference. Like, I was recovering faster from workouts. And I'm just curious, when you were experimenting making butters and yogurt, like, what was that like for you, kind of opening up this new veil of nutrition?
I just felt like I reached my calling in life. Like, I found out what I was supposed to do. Like I said, I was completely fascinated by everything you could make from milk, everything it could do, all the different cultures you could add to it. Our cuisine at home completely changed. I mentioned the queso fresco and the cultured butter. Like, once you have those products, you cannot go back. You cannot go back. You just know what the good stuff tastes like.
That sounds amazing.
Mhm.
What do you say to moms or parents that say, Michelle, this sounds great, but I just don't have time to cook for my kids or do meal prep, or how do I feed my kids for school?
It's hard
It's
a hard one, and that is real life. And I would say start somewhere. Start by making your first pot of meat stock or bone broth. Look up the recipes and try to do that. If you can't do that, then buy some of the convenience packaged foods. We have those on the market now. Fawn bone broth exists. Go buy it. Make soup.
Shout out to Fawn.
Make your family a pot of soup. Start with that. And again, if you don't have time to make yogurt at home or don't have a desire to, there are companies that are trying their darndest to do this right. Look for the convenience foods that you can afford, and the things that you can't, then learn to make them. The legacy that you'll leave for your family is more important than anything else here. I think that in a busy, troubled world, we have lost those ancient preparation techniques they're not passed down anymore from grandma to mom to me. They weren't to me. I learned how to cook by watching cooking shows on TV. And then I bought Nourishing Traditions by Sally Fallon, who I know you guys had on the show too.
Yeah,
It's great.
And that was the original recipe that I learned how to make yogurt from. And, you know, you really have to balance your time with your priorities, right? Because for me, with my little kiddo who was sick, I didn't have a choice. Whether I had time or not, I didn't have a choice. If there was a way to heal her, it wasn't a pill, it wasn't a drug, it wasn't a steroid cream, it wasn't another doctor's visit, specialist, GI doctor, all the places we went. It was none of that. And I prioritized her health and my time and made it happen. And we as parents are able to do impossible things for our kids. Mm-hmm. And I'm just an ordinary person and I figured out how to do it. And that I really believe strongly that as parents, we have not only the blessing to have our children, but we are given the beautiful intuitive powers to be able to see what our family needs and rise to the occasion and do it. Mm. And I would like to inspire more families to do that because it is possible. It is possible. I have 7 children and I run a business and I cook every single day. I cook. It can be done. It can be done. There are classes, there are meal planning tools, there are apps. If you put your mind to it, it can be done.
Mm. Is that some of the inspiration behind the name Mother Culture?
Great question. I haven't had that question in a long time. Mother culture, yes, obviously, female-owned, female-founded business. That wasn't a thing back then when I was writing up the names for mother culture. But culture, of course, comes from the words cultures or probiotic cultures or the type of cultures that one might add to yogurt, cheese, mm-hmm. etc., to make a fermented food product. And then mother just refers to that heirloom variety, that ancient tradition where these things were passed down from generation to generation, like kefir grains, like sourdough starter, these beautiful fermented foods that have been lost in our family's traditions because we forgot about them or we didn't think they were important or we lost them due to a modern lifestyle where us as women, a lot of us have to go out and work, mm-hmm. And there's no one to take care of and tend to something that has to be fed every day unless it's a kid. So the mother part, of course, comes from, like a lot of times kefir is traditionally made with kefir grains. And they're like these little cauliflower, bubbly looking things. And those are mother cultures. Those are heirloom cultures that have been around forever and ever.
Michelle, how did you go from taking that course with Sally, learning how to make kefir for the first time, to then mustering up the courage to go to the farmer's market in 2013, to then launching that into a full-scale business of what you're doing now?
Sure. So at first it was sharing that yogurt recipe with friends and family. And it was just the plain signature. It was the more drinkable style yogurt at that time. And then for my family on the side, I was doing some of the honey vanilla or the maple vanilla, which sadly no longer exists. I'll tell you the story on that later.
That's a tragedy.
So we might have to bring it back.
So on the side, I was making this honey vanilla because it was decadent, thick and creamy and just indulgent, right? And so one day I was at my favorite farmer's market and I decided I was going to bring the farmer's market manager a sample. And I brought her the 2 samples, the drinkable and the Greek. And she was so funny. She just stuck her finger right in that mason jar and just started eating it. And she wouldn't stop. And she just kept on eating it. It was extremely flattering because I was just a home cook at this point. And she was so inspired by the taste of the product that she helped me, her and her husband helped me and became mentors and decided that we had to be at the farmer's market come hell or high water. And that was really the beginning of the business side. I was also going through a divorce at the time, and it was on my mind that I needed to find a way to support my family. So I was open to it. I was open to a change. And then, of course, after that, it became very apparent to me that dairy was not the easiest field to get into. The health department heavily regulates the dairy industry, whether you're a small producer or a large. You have to have a lot of commercial equipment that's very expensive. It's only manufactured by certain manufacturers. You can only use certain packaging. It's only manufactured by certain people. It's very much like a little club.
Yeah.
And it's a man's world on top of it. No offense.
But it's true though.
It is.
Yeah.
And so it was a real struggle to get started. But I took a chance on some investment funds that I had in place, and I rolled those dice and I bought my pasteurizer. It's a 100-gallon pasteurizer. It's the same equipment that still stands in mother culture today. And every time I walk into that room and see that pasteurizer, it represents my entire, retirement savings. Every time I see it, it was an incredible risk. I was young. I was a lot younger, had fewer kids, I was being really brave, but not sure I'd make the same choice today, because I'm a little more responsible. But it was the perfect storm. Everything just came together and just beautifully, and started selling the yogurt at that farmer's market in San Antonio. And then I picked up another one, and then picked up another one. And we just kept on growing organically since then.
How much did that pasteurizer cost?
It was, with all the equipment, it was $23,000.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a huge deal. The emotional attachment to your investment funds, and then being like, all right, I know that if I buy this thing, we're going all in. But you're just trusting in your faith and your vision. And it's like you have these moments along the way where you kind of connect the dots looking backwards. And that clearly for you is like you're assigned to just kind of burn the boats and really trust your vision and go all in on this thing.
Yeah, totally. Burn the boats. Oh, my chosen career was Spanish education. And I was a teacher. And I realized that at the time of my divorce that I had to make a choice to, if I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom anymore or not. And the thought of going to school every day and having to put my kids in daycare just broke my heart. And what was more was my kids still needed a special diet, and I wasn't sure that I was going to be able to do both. And so, this family work balance has been there from the very beginning. It's been a real challenge as a woman, as a mom, just doing it all,
Mm-hmm.
But it was the right choice because I've always been able to spend more time with them,
Mm-hmm.
When you decided to go all in, were you surprised at what you were capable of doing once you started taking one step and then the next step? Because I imagine once you put all the chips on the table, you really have to bring the best out in yourself when it comes to what you're doing in business with your family and everything in between.
Oh yeah, there've definitely been highs and lows. I mean, at first, the goal of Mother Culture was just to buy groceries for my family. One of the challenges I think of eating this way is that our grocery bills are higher, and we're
Yes.
not paying the doctor. We're not having to pay such high insurance premiums, but we are paying the grocery bill, right? And so my objective was at every farmer's market to make enough money to go across the parking lot to Whole Foods and round out my groceries. And to trade yogurt for eggs, and to trade yogurt for pastured poultry, and so on, and grass-fed beef, and so on and so forth, so that my family could not just eat, but eat the foods that I knew were going to keep us on that path toward healing and maintaining the healing that we had achieved. So yeah, we started off with that simple goal, and then the momentum was crazy, getting out there, having folks just light up when they put that sample in their mouth. And that's addicting. I still love to watch people's reaction to eating mother culture yogurt, because they compare it to yogurt they've eaten overseas. They compare it to yogurt they've had, in France and Greece and Italy. And that's such an amazing compliment. And I just feel so blessed to have found, the best, how to make the best yogurt on earth. I really do believe it's the best yogurt on earth. And been blessed to partner with a beautiful farm that helps us accomplish that task, because we really are nothing without them.
And well, that's your craft, and it sounds cheesy, but it's like truly made with love. So I can only imagine how good that actually feels when people take a spoonful of it and you can literally see their eyes light up. It's probably such a special feeling. My question for you was, so how long were you kind of bootstrapping it in farmers markets before you really started to like get to make that push into retail stores? Because like you're saying, at one point you're you're taking the profits and buying groceries from Whole Foods. Now you're in Whole Foods and we can buy your stuff in Whole Foods. So that's got to be a really cool feeling for you too.
Yeah, totally. So we're going to be 9 in December, and it was about halfway through the journey. So about 4 years in, we were doing everything at the farmer's market. And that was such an incredible hardship, because it would rain and there were no profits. So our sales were literally contingent upon the weather.
Wow. Oh gosh.
So, yeah, it was crazy. It was a gamble. I felt like a farmer, who was really rolling those dice every week. And we did have seasons that we were poor as paupers. But around that 4-year mark, we got approached at the farmer's market here in Austin, actually. And Whole Foods and Wheatsville were our first. They found us at the Lakeline Farmers Market. Wow. And they approached us and they wanted us in. And it was before Whole Foods had their recent, mergers and everything. And so it was a little bit different how they onboarded and whatnot. And those accounts really started to transform the business. We were able to really diversify at that point and not be so concerned with the weather, not be so concerned with the seasonality of that product, because, in Texas, we are blessed to only have a couple of bad weather months a year. But when you have no income all of January and all of February, that can be pretty rough.
My gosh.
So Whole Foods in Wheatsville, those 2 stores really, and we're still in those stores. They really helped us to keep that bottom line going.
Mm-hmm. Did you have any reservations going into Whole Foods, just being a smaller operation, just working the farmers markets and then having access to this big store? Was there any kind of caution that you were taking, or was it just like, hey, this is a great opportunity, I got to go in on this?
Definitely. I actually had an advisor who was advising me not to go into Whole Foods, to make sure to read the contract really carefully, to make sure to bargain for certain terms that we needed. I think the first draft of the contract that I saw with Whole Foods was net 60 terms. I mean, we would have been dead by then. We were such babies. We didn't have that kind of income to wait 2 months for a paycheck.
Right.
So, that was extremely daunting. It was a crazy task to get into such a big store, but it also felt like such a success moment and such a moment to be proud of, that we're just kind of pushed forward through that and got the right legal representation to help us figure out those terms and everything. But it was, like I said, from the beginning, after the farmer's market, would go to Whole Foods and do that shopping. And so seeing my product on the shelf, I still pinch myself. Mm-hmm. Like, this is where I shop for groceries, and I'm there, and my face is on the glass. Like, they have this thing and my face is there. Like, it's crazy. It blows my mind every time I see it.
Is the goal to eventually be in every Whole Foods around the country, or are you just thinking Texas local food system for now?
So we are definitely committed to Texas right now, 100%, trying to expand as much as we can within the state. And unfortunately, we can't even ship outside of the state right now. That's just the rules. I mentioned some of the regulations and stuff for dairy, that they're really stringent, and that's one of them. So for right now, we really do want to get into every nook and cranny of Texas, and there's so much room to expand into still at this point. And then maybe someday down the line, we could do a national thing, but my little pasteurizer isn't going to carry us to, all states across Texas. So there are definitely some logistics, financial logistics, and property logistics to work out before dreaming that big.
So we got to get some more pasteurizers,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
We can take care of the demand side of the equation. Just restock local pastures.
We definitely can.
I was curious to learn a little bit more about your relationship with the farm that you mentioned. How did that relationship come to be, and what went through your process of just figuring out what was the right farm to work with?
Sure. There aren't that many raw milk dairies in the state of Texas. So it was really easy to get started on that project, because it was like, I could count them all in a hand. So of course I was committed to those heirloom breeds. I was looking for a Jersey cow herd, and not only because of those A2 proteins, but also because of the cream top. If you compare the cream top of a Holstein crowd to Jerseys, you're going to get this beautiful, like, half to 1/3 of the gallon of milk is all cream. And that's one of the secrets to what makes mother culture so delicious, is that it's not low fat. In fact, it's probably more high fat than it is low fat, especially when you're consuming that Greek. So that was a huge, that was number one. Number two is the herd healthy? Is the farmer ethical? Is he taking care of his animals? And we found a beautiful farmer who has been in business and it's a family business. It's been passed down from generation to generation to generation. And they were willing to help us deliver the milk, which is an amazing service because each gallon weighs 8.6 pounds. So 8.6 times, where we're at right now, 600 gallons, that really adds up. So that was one, we wanted the feel-good aspect of that. We wanted to make sure that we were supporting a family farm, someone who's taking care of their animals, being a good steward over their animals. And then, of course, we needed that raw milk. We didn't want it pasteurized. We wanted to be able to take care of that process ourselves, doing that low and slow process that we do in-house to ensure that the yogurt turns out, full of not damaged proteins. And yeah, I think that sums it up. We found the perfect farm.
And I love what you were saying about that concept of the cream top, because once your perspective on nutrition changes and you find that perfect gallon and the cream top is looking good, which is signifying that it's coming from a heritage breed cow, you're just getting so many good, like, fat soluble vitamins. It's so nutrient dense. It sits great in your stomach. And no matter how many times I talk about this, it's still amazing to me when I go to a grocery store or Whole Foods and I see people specifically going for the skim-free milk or the fat-free option or the plant-based milk. And it's like, you're literally missing out on all the nutrients because of this, like, decades-old propaganda around fat. And it's just a shame what people could be actually tapping into if they really understood how to eat and understand nutrition.
Totally. And one of the important things, like right now in Texas, the grass is so green everywhere. It is time to drink the milk. It is time to grab that cream, because that's where all the fat soluble vitamins are the richest, is when you get that bright yellow. I just made butter from the farm that we get the milk from, and the color on that, just vibrant yellow. And you're getting all that vitamin A. You're grabbing, it's better than popping pills, just slather it all over everything.
Yeah, there's something about that yellow color that like once you see it, once you taste it, it's so rich. It has everything you need, and there's just yeah, it's so different than skim milk. Like I grew up on skim milk. My mom just thought she bought into the whole saturated fat dogma in the nutrition world, and I was drinking skim milk, and I just think about what could happen if generations were raised on the good stuff, the raw milk. And it's so amazing that you've been able to actually share that with your daughter through a hard time. But I just wish more people had that information.
Totally. And manufacturers, dairy manufacturers have gotten smart to this, and they started adding dye,
Really?
to cheeses and to butters. And you really have to read your labels, because if your butter is white, you're getting the benefits of an animal fat, but not really the vitamins that you could be getting. So it's really important point to read those labels when you're consuming dairy. Make sure that there's not, still consume the animal fat. If that's all you can find, of course, eat that. But just read labels. Be aware that they're doing that.
I have to ask this question. What goes through your mind when you see like the Oatleys of the world, like these alternative milks in the grocery store? Like, do you think there's a place for them on the shelf at all?
Oh my goodness. I try to be kind to folks that are consuming these alternative milks. A lot of folks just don't understand that there's another way, or have the education to know that, oh, maybe I can't drink the regular milk, but maybe there's raw milk, or folks are afraid of raw milk. So I understand. And some people really do have food allergies and they can't consume milk of any kind. So I understand that folks want to find something that's milk-like to get that. It's such a satisfying thing to have a glass of milk, or to have folks that are still eating cereal. You can't have cereal without milk. But unfortunately, some of these products are not being processed properly either. The oats, for example, you're going to get a product that's extremely high in anti-nutrients, because they're not soaking the oats before they make the milk out of them. They're just warring those up with water. Almonds, the same thing, anti-nutrients unless they're soaked beforehand. And all this is in the Weston A. Price Nourishing Traditions book about how to properly prepare nuts and grains and legumes. But unfortunately, you're probably contributing to your health problems by consuming a lot of these brands. And dairy really does get a bad rap, because, you're giving, it could be yourself or your child, you're giving them a glass of milk per your pediatrician's recommendation, and then they're experiencing digestive upset afterwards, and you blame it on the milk, when in fact it was the way the milk was pasteurized, the way the animals were treated, what they were injected with, and on top of it all, it's probably been homogenized, which completely warps the fat molecules in there too. So you gave him something that the body doesn't recognize as protein, and the body doesn't recognize as fat, and then Johnny's allergic to milk. And then you go on the almond milk thinking that you're helping him, when in fact, if you just would have started with the raw milk, or if you're too afraid, the raw cheese, or the yogurt, or the low temperature pasteurized, non-homogenized, I'd done it too. I was the mom who did everything conventional from the beginning. My daughter was fed powdered formula. It wasn't even organic. It was like the worst brand on the market. It's a matter of trying to understand the science right now, and really rejecting that conventional advice. Find the people that are healthy. Find the people that have healthy kids. Find the people that don't have kids with eczema, and find out what they're doing, And unfortunately, it wasn't my fault, and it's not anybody else's fault if you're currently consuming these products. It's just the education that's out there right now. It's so hard to find the truth.
You touch on such an important nutritional framework. We had on a few weeks ago this gentleman named Steven Arena, who goes by Tan Man. He runs this company called Masa Chips. So it's a tallow fried tortilla chip. So they cook it in beef tallow, sea salt, organic corn tortilla, and they do a specific preparation of the corn to make it way more palatable and less toxic. And one of the things that he talked about is this concept of we love to just demonize food groups, but it's not necessarily the food group that should be demonized. It's really the preparation method and the quality of food. So it's like milk, pasteurized milk is not raw milk. Feedlot beef is not regenerative grass finished beef. Sourdough is not white bread, yet, it's under the funnel of milk or bread or beef. And then we just are like, oh, I can't tolerate milk. I can't tolerate beef. And it's like, no, are you actually going directly to the source and getting the best quality beef or milk that you can get? Because your body might feel a lot different when you're actually prioritizing that great quality grass finished dairy.
Totally. And, corn and the way that he's preparing those grains, that nixtamal process is fermentation.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of these traditional fermentation products are pre-digesting processes, are pre-digesting our foods for us and making them easily digestible. And, that matches up with my experience with my oldest with the eggs. She was on paper. She's allergic to eggs in like 4 different places. She's allergic to eggs. And then I take a chance on the farmer's egg I know is soy-free, regenerative, pasture raised, rotating them around on the pasture all the time. And no hives, no allergic reaction, no itching of the skin afterwards. And that really just blew my mind that she was never allergic to eggs. She was allergic to what the farmer was feeding the egg or the way the chicken was treated or something pesticides on the grass. I don't know what it was to this day, but the way our food is processed and what the animals are eating are just as important in the equation.
Yeah, one of the things we talk a lot about is just closing the gap between where, most people, they're so distanced from their food, they don't even really understand all the different processes that are happening to the food. So just, can you buy directly from the farm? I know like a lot of people don't necessarily have access to that, but it is just a little bit of extra effort and it can go so far because then you understand what exactly is going into raising that animal or raising that crop. And you understand if it's sprayed with pesticides or if the animal's actually grass-fed, grass-finished. And that little bit of information can go such a long way in your health.
Totally. Yeah. And there are little things you can do at home too to get started. We've kept chickens before, even in the city and city limits, and there are some city ordinances that protect homeowners and homeowners associations from denying that. And especially with the recent egg shortage, I think people are thinking more about how can I be more self-sustainable and take care of my own family's needs more than ever. Little garden patches in your backyard, get rid of some of the grass and do some little compost in there and grow what you can. I'm really big on growing herbs because herbs are super expensive in these tiny little packages and they go rotten in 3 days.
Yeah.
So if I'm not gardening anything else, it's just the herbs so that we have those fresh herbs for the beautiful soups and stocks that we make at home.
That's so well said. I wanted to ask you, what do you think the future of mother culture looks like?
The future of mother culture is going to be great. It's going to be awesome. It's been awesome so far. We have plans to expand more in Texas, like I said. And, this whole time it's really been an organic growth where it's just been really manageable and we get one account at a time and we find a way. We keep finding a way. And that's how it's going to continue to be. I'm sure of it. I have, we're ready. My husband and I are committed to increasing production. We know that's on the horizon for us. And we're ready for whatever comes. We definitely have to expand some, like more pasteurizers. But we're ready, and I'm excited. I'm excited because I really want to get some of this message out to a wider audience too, and share that yogurt. My family's in upstate New York, and I'd love to be able to send them to the grocery store where they can pick it up too.
Mm. For people listening in who've been inspired by this conversation, where can they get more information on mother culture and what you guys are up to?
Sure. So our website is motherculturesa.com. And if you put a /shop in there, you can see what's in stock right now. We update the site daily. And then, of course, these are all Texas options, but we attend the Pearl Farmers Market in San Antonio on Saturday, the Lakeline Farmers Market in Cedar Park on Saturday, and we attend the New Braunfels Farmers Market on Saturday. And then on Sunday, we're at Muller in Lady Bird Park from 10 to 2. So the farmers market, you're going to get, the biggest sizes, the best deals, the direct sales. You get to talk to us. And then, of course, if you need something in the week, you can find us at Whole Foods, Central Market, Wheatsville, and Local Pastures, of course.
Nice. So there's plenty of options for people. We're going to have to start going to the farmer's market so we can get the bigger size, honestly, because we just go through it so fast.
What size are you guys buying right now?
What do we get from Local Pastures?
They're quarts, maybe?
Oh, that's the biggest size.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we might have to start going half gallon for
Yeah,
us.
we might have to strike a deal for you guys.
No, but in all seriousness, one of the coolest parts for us is actually getting to have on founders of brands that we personally use and respect and just want to learn more about because we're so curious. So it's so cool to be able to have you in studio and get to build a relationship with you and learn more about your story. And we just want to thank you for coming in and just thank you for everything that you're doing because you have 2 huge fans of your product here and the world just needs more mother culture. So just very excited for all that's to come.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for the opportunity, both of you.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thanks.
Sure.
Awesome.
All right.
That was great.